Welcome to Flat, Cool, and Acid-Free, an OK State Archives podcast, bringing you stories about Oklahoma State University and Oklahoma. I'm Nina Thornton, multimedia producer for the OSU Libraries. On this episode,
bowl with water coming up out of it, and then that overflows into the kind of the pond or the pad that then cascades down to the lower
let's
level.
talk about the iconic OSU Library Fountain. I always love the sound of the cooling fountain on a hot summer day. David, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to talk about the fountain today. Let's talk about the history. When was the library built? Was the fountain in that plan?
So the library had a bit of a challenge in 1948. The problem was to build the facility, they needed to close Washington Street. And Washington Street was a section road, which meant it had to be open. So they had to get special dispensation from both local authorities and state authorities to be able to close Washington Street. So it delayed construction for about 2 years. They didn't have the groundbreaking, I think it was in roughly May of 1950, when they finally broke ground on the new facility. They start construction by January of 1953. The main library building is completed, and they begin moving the materials over from the old library, which was located where ConocoPhillips Alumni Center is now. But they began moving materials over. And so they had kind of, let's say, a soft opening that spring of 1953. And then by May, they had the official opening and dedication. It was kind of a double ceremony. They both had the opening of the library and the official kind of installation of President Wilhelm as the president. Except for the North Addition that was added in the 60s, the library was much like we know it today, at least the exterior was. And the main facade is to the south. And so that's the grand entry is into the south doors, and that plaza area out front was designed as kind of a receiving area for those going into the library. Yeah, the fountain was a little the plaza and the fountain were a little later in being completed, but they were initially part of the building construction, and I think it may have been the first kind of significant water feature on campus. First, you have the main bowl with water coming up out of it, and then that overflows into the kind of the pond or the pad that then cascades down to the lower level. So I really think it's an interesting feature and kind of unique for the campus.
So let's talk about some of the key aspects of the fountain. Inside of the fountain on the base, there's this beautiful white marble. Now, I've heard rumors that white marble portion was recycled marble from another place on campus. We did an episode a few months ago about legends and mysteries on campuses. And I think the legend of the mystery around that being recycled was that it was marble pulled from a bathroom, and you can see where they had the toilet paper dispense rollers drilled into, so you can still see those little things represented. I think that's maybe part of a mystery and a legend on campus if we don't really know the origins.
You're talking about the marble within the pool part? Or
within the pool part.
So I don't have any information regarding that being recycled. I know that for the construction of the library, they got 11 different types of marble, 5 different types from Italy, 1 type of marble from Belgium. They got Vermont. They got marble from quite a few places. I just can't see them recycling marble. And actually, before the union and the library, very little what I would call quality stone had been used in buildings. Early foundations were, a sandstone. Kind of it's not. I mean, it's a stone, but it's not known for its rigidity. And we had problems with early foundations, but I don't think there was much marble used on campus before the construction of the library and the union. So I think that was probably new marble that had been ordered as they were ordering all this other marble, which is really kind of, at the time, it may have been considered kind of extravagant to have that many different types of marble to be used in the building. Plus they ordered special, I think it's called Casota stone from Minnesota. That's used in the grand stairwell. And so, but now the bowl, that black bowl, that's the fountain. Now that's actually a granite. That's not a marble. But I do know the granite bowl weighs 3 tons. It's 6,000 pounds.
Oh,
That's
wow.
one hefty little chunk of stone there. So, but yeah, so the marble used in the fountain, I'd have to do some more exploring to see if I can figure out if that came. But I just don't see it coming from other places on campus, unless it may have been. Now, the only thing it possibly could be is if they used marble in the construction of the Union and they had excess marble left from when they did that construction, because this construction happened later, and so they might have used either uh, leftover construction materials, or maybe if it was in a bathroom, maybe the it was the holes were cut wrong for the plumbing or something, and so they had to scavenge that sheet and put up a different sheet. I don't know. So it could have been recycled from another project, most likely the Union.
So you talked a little bit about the plaza. That plaza actually doesn't look like it did originally. Can you talk about in 2005 what that renovation kind of looked like and what it looks like today?
So there was a series of issues with the original plaza. It was made with brick, and there'd been cracks, and the brick was very smooth. It's very similar to the north side of the library. For anyone who's been on the north side in a winter storm, or it's just very slick. And so in 2005, John Clerico generously donated, I think it was $500,000 for a revamping of that whole area. They tore up all the old brick, and then they did press brick, which is kind of really a concrete that then gets the impression of a brick located into it. And that's when they added the Oklahoma State University seal at the center of the south doors. That was added at that point. That had never been there before when there was just the brick there. So functionally, the that plaza area is very similar. It's got new brick. They reworked some of the walls and structures around, just kind of cleaned them up. And then they did some fairly major improvements to the fountain. The fountain had really begun to break down in the 60s, 1960s and early 70s. And really the students led the way in raising funds to restore it. Students at the time. Eventually the board of regents decided, well, if the students are willing to pony up so much money, we'll make up whatever the difference is to get it fixed and restored. So, but it was student initiative that kind of led that. But now this is another 30 years later, and so it was needing some love and attention by 2005.
So, fountain through the years, there's a lot that centers around it because it is the center of campus. We know we have the dying of the fountain with homecoming.
There've been dances out there. The Christmas tree lighting usually kind of takes place in that area, even though the tree is down on the other end of the lawn. But the people gather there in front of the library. Now with our house opening events, it's just been a popular location for people to gather. But we've had fairly somber things when President Kennedy was killed, November of '63. That's where we had a big outdoor kind of event centered on the library patio area and the lawn. And thousands of people gathered for a ceremony.
History happened in front of this fountain, and that's incredible. That's a cool story.
In the 1960s, demonstrations against the war in Vietnam took place. They would, like I said, they would start there or end there. But there was also issue with university freedom of speech issues for students, and they would also collect there and set up a podium and a microphone and share their views. So it's kind of like our version of the Wittenberg door. Now that was a place where Luther nailed up his 95 Theses, challenging the Catholic Church because he knew that was a center point for people to gather. And for us, that's our Wittenberg door is the front of the library there with the fountain, because that's where people know that they can share, exchange ideas, and express themselves. So
Where would where would you say would be the best place to look for some of these maybe photos of the fountain or the plaza? Would the yearbooks be the best place to kind of look at the history in photographs by the fountain?
the yearbook would be a good starting point. There'll be some photographs and information from various versions of what now we call State Magazine. It had other titles in the past, but they kind of would track the library. We are such a public space, and we're such a focal point for the institution. So when something happens here, usually it's covered. And so I would say the alumni magazines or State Magazine, the yearbooks, there'll be more information in the Daily Oak Collegian, various projects were happening. They would cover that. I know we have pictures in just our general photo archive for the university. So there's a lot of images available. We just have to look for them.
Perfect. And they can get in contact with you through the website, library.okstate.edu, and look for the archives on that page, or connect with us on Facebook at OK State SCUA. That is OKSTATESCUA. This episode featured David Peters and was produced by Nina Thornton. The music is It's a Process, composed by Ben Stone and Finley Green, and published by BBC Production Music, PRS. From the folks at the Oklahoma State University Libraries and the Archives, thanks for listening, and always remember to keep your archival material flat, cool, and acid-free.